Hey guys, my name is Joseph Graff, and today I'm going to be giving you all an update on my Robinhood portfolio. I've been investing with Robinhood for about 2 years now, a little over 2 years, and I've made a little over $1,000. In today's video, I'll show you all what I am holding, if I plan to buy some more of the stocks that I own, if I plan to sell them, and yeah, that being said, here's the video. Alright guys, so here we are in my Robinhood portfolio. As you all can see, I have a little over $8,600 in equity at the moment. All time, I am up 11.2%. Like I said, I've been investing for a little over 2 years now using the Robinhood app. Over the past year, I'm up 5.23%, or about $430. Over the past 3 months, I'm up a little over 5%. The last month, I'm up about 0.7%. The last week, I'm up about 1.4%. And then this past trading day, which was this past Friday, I was down about 0.1%, so not too bad. So in some of my other videos, I've talked to you all a little bit about what my strategy is. And today, we're going to go through some of my stocks, and I'll talk to you about how they're doing, why I bought them, if I'm considering selling them, if I'm considering buying more. And I have too many positions to talk about all of them, so I'll probably just talk about the ones of significance. So here we go. So I bought Uber a little while after it was released to the public, and really it was a bad purchase. I'm down almost 30%. Usually I cut my losses around 7 or 8%. But I just thought, but I plan on holding Uber for the long term. I don't have a huge position in it. I only have about 4 shares. So I've only lost about $55, which is never a good thing. But like I said, just due to the size of the position, I'm not that concerned about it. I've discussed Visa in some previous videos. I love it. I love all payment processing companies. I'm going to continue to add to my Visa position, even though it has gone up and up and up. I won't talk about Chegg too much. It's a school subscription service. They offer homework help, tutoring, and textbooks. Waste management, something else I've talked about in a lot of other videos. I just think it's a solid company. I think there will always be waste, and that's why I bought Waste Management, and I do plan to add on to Waste Management. XLF here, that's my financial sector ETF. I discussed the reasons why I bought this about 2 weeks ago. I just think the financial sector is really undervalued at the moment, and all time I'm only up about 1.4%. Most of this position I took about 2 weeks ago, so I'll be keeping my eye on that. I also bought Pfizer about 2 weeks ago. Pfizer has been not doing so hot lately. I think it's a great dividend stock, and I think it's a little undervalued at the moment, which is why I decided to buy it. If you look at this graph right here, you can see in the last 3 months, it's given up almost 15%. So based on my thoughts on Pfizer, I decided to buy some more, and I will probably look to add to that position here in the future. IYH right here, that is just a healthcare ETF. I really like the healthcare sector. I think it's something that will continue to grow over time. I'm not going to talk about that too much either. Geo Group's kind of an interesting stock. So one of the reasons I looked into this stock is because it has a pretty high dividend yield. Robinhood lists it at about 9.5%. And Geo Group actually operates private prisons. It's kind of an interesting, unique business model. I haven't totally figured out how I feel about it yet, but it has not done great over the past year or so. It does pay a pretty nice dividend, like I said, and it only represents about 0.4% of my portfolio. So even though I'm down 23% right now, I'm not terribly worried about it just because it's so small. Verizon's been a really great stock for me. You know, if you look at this year chart, it looks like it really hasn't done too much. And over the past 5 years, it's only gone up 17%. But they do pay a pretty healthy 4.2% dividend yield. That's what Robinhood is reporting. Robinhood's dividend yield sometime sometimes get messed up or don't show up right. So you might have to double check on the dividend yield for Verizon. But overall, I think Verizon's a solid dividend stock. I like their business model. I really like subscription-based business models. I just think, when you are charging your customers monthly, it's always good to just have that recurring revenue coming along. Apple, I won't talk too much about Apple. I love Apple products. I have an iPhone right here. I'm shooting this video on an iPad. I just really love Apple as a company, and that's why I decided to buy them. I'm doing pretty well on Apple. I'm up about 17% all time, and it is one of the larger holdings in my portfolio. This next, it's actually an ETF right here, VOOG, or it is a Standard & Poor's 500 growth ETF. I'm not going to talk too much about that. That's what I call one of my lazy investments. I wanted a growth element to add to my portfolio. Didn't want to research individual stocks, so I just went ahead and picked up a growth ETF that tracks the Standard & Poor's 500. The next stock is kind of interesting. It's Paychex. So this company does payment processing. I know they work a lot with some small companies. One of the first companies I worked with, actually my first job ever, it was with a pretty small company, under 50 or 60 employees, and they actually use Paychex as their payment processor. So that's kind of how I heard about it. It sounded interesting. I looked into it a little bit, and it's actually turned out to be a really good investment for me. I'm up about 38% all time, and now that was about one of the first stocks I bought, so that is over 2 years. They also pay a nice little dividend. It's nothing huge. Right now they're at about 2.7% dividend according to Robinhood. Next is Merck. Merck is a pharmaceutical company. Not going to talk too much about them. I think I'm up about 20% all time on them. Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble is something kind of interesting. I always kind of thought that it was a more defensive stock, like a value stock, but it seems like ever since I bought it, it's just gone up and up and up. It turned out to be a really good investment. I bought it partly for the dividend yield, because when I bought it, it was yielding around 3%, and I thought it was a solid company. I was not expecting much growth. I didn't think that it would go up much in price at all, and to my surprise, it's gone up about 38% since I bought it. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm also receiving dividends from that. So overall, pretty happy with Procter & Gamble. I just have a position of 1 share, so it's not really that big of a position, but I still like it. Coca-Cola is actually a very similar stock in that regard. I bought it kind of for the same reasons as Procter & Gamble. I thought it was a safe value investment, a very defensive stock, and I guess when I bought it, it was yielding about 3 or 4%. And it's actually gone up 23% since I bought it. So pretty happy with Coca-Cola. Once again, only have 1 share of it. So, not a ton of money I made off that, but a decent little amount. The next one is just a dividend ETF. I won't talk too much about the ETFs. Like I said, I kind of think of them as lazy investments. And when I say lazy, I don't necessarily mean bad lazy. I'm just thinking, I just mean it in a way of I didn't have time to really do any research on stocks that week, but I wanted to invest some money. So I just purchased an ETF that I liked. The next is very similar. It's SDOG. And this is like, if you all have ever heard Dogs of the Dow, you take the top 5 or top 10 highest dividend yielding stocks in the Dow Jones index, and you invest in those. This is a very similar concept, but it's applied to the Standard & Poor's 500, and it's done all right. It says I'm down 6%, but its dividend yield is about 4.6%. I've probably held it for about 2 years, so given the dividends that I've earned on it, I'm actually probably up 2 or 3%. ExxonMobil's a very interesting stock to me. It's a big oil and gas company, a big energy company, and right now it just seems very undervalued. Its price to earnings ratio is about 16.5 is what Robinhood is saying. The overall stock market index is around 22 or 23 if you look at the Standard & Poor 500. ExxonMobil is yielding almost 5% right now, and I've lost almost 14% on it. Now, something I do want to talk about is I actually own 3 shares of ExxonMobil in a separate account. It's a dividend reinvestment plan. So all the dividends that I receive from ExxonMobil get reinvested every time they pay a dividend. So that's kind of been sitting there accumulating dividends. I'm accumulating shares every time there's a dividend payment from ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil is actually something that I really would like to pick up more of here pretty soon. I do need to do a little bit more research on them. I don't know why they've gone down over the past year or so, but I do think it's a good company. It's a very big company. And yeah, we'll have to see. I'd like to add some more to my portfolio, but I'm going to do some research, and maybe I'll uncover something that kind of scares me off. But for right now, I'm definitely putting it on my buy list. This next fund is a Vanguard Extended Market ETF, and what this is it is not all the stocks, but it tracks an index of stocks that are not in the Standard & Poor 500. This is just a good way to get exposure to a few more mid caps and small caps. Next thing I own is SCHD, another dividend fund. I really like dividend ETFs, if you haven't noticed. This one's actually done really well. I'm up 9.5% all time, and I've been collecting dividends on it for a couple of years here. The dividend yield's about 3.3%. I think it's a pretty solid ETF if you are interested in dividend ETFs. So these next two I'll kind of lump together. So I own OHI, which is Omega Healthcare Investors, and then I also own which is Welltower. These are both real estate investment trusts. I wanted a little exposure to the real estate sector, so I purchased these. The real estate sector has done really well over the past year or so, so I've actually made a decent amount of money off these. Plus, they have a pretty nice dividend yield, so I've been very happy with those holdings. My next holding is MGV, which is Mega Cap Value ETF. So it picks big stocks that are in the Standard & Poor 500, especially those that are trading at a lower PE multiple. I won't show you all this, but I will show you all this. I'm up about 3%, and I also pull in about a 2.7% dividend yield. So it's been decent, not amazing. SPY right here is a Standard & Poor 500 index fund. I'm not going to talk about that at all. The next one is a Standard & Poor 500 value index fund. So this is actually very similar to MGV. So the next stock I'll talk about is NOBL. This is the Dividend Aristocrats ETF. Another dividend ETF, if you haven't noticed a pattern here. I like dividend ETFs. I am up almost 7% on that, and I've been collecting about a 2.4% dividend. The Dividend Aristocrats Index tracks companies that have raised their dividends for at least the past 25 years. So a lot of the companies in this index are really solid companies that do well even during a recession. So I would definitely check that out if that's something you're interested in. O is Realty Income. I'm not going to talk about that. SPYG, that's a Standard & Poor 500 growth fund, similar to some of the earlier funds I was talking about, like SPYV and MGV, but instead of value stocks, they're growth stocks. I own a little bit of Facebook, Square. VOO is another Standard & Poor 500 index fund. Then I own another Standard & Poor 500 high dividend fund. I won't talk about that. I've already talked enough about dividend ETFs. And then TLT right here, that's just a treasury ETF that tracks bonds that are at least 20 years from expiring. So that's just a very safe defensive play. I bought it because I was kind of thinking we might go into a recession, and you can look at it. I'm actually up very slightly. but it'll pay me about 2.5% yield, and I believe it actually pays monthly, so that's kind of cool. So that's my Robinhood portfolio. I will show you all real quick some of the dividends I've received. It's kind of cool seeing all these dividends come in. I have an ExxonMobil dividend coming up here pretty soon, one for Pfizer, one for Visa, one for my high dividend ETF, one for Welltower, one for Paychex, one for Apple. And you all can just see these. I think it's really cool collecting dividends. And every dividend I receive, I end up investing right back into my Robinhood portfolio. So that about wraps up today's video. I just wanted to give you all an update on how I am doing with my Robinhood account. Hopefully you all found some of the information today useful. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. Please hit the like button and leave me a comment below. What is your all's favorite stock? What do you all think that I should buy? Thank you all for watching, and take care.